It's time to get real, reality TV aficionados. Welcome to the Giorgio Says podcast. I'm your host, the one and only Giorgio Takanakis, and I'm here serving you the juiciest updates on all your favorite reality shows weekly, as well as the hottest pop culture trends, and even exclusive interviews that will leave you wanting more. This podcast will keep you on the edge of your seat. We definitely need to talk about this. The Giorgio Says podcast starts now.
All right, my friends, welcome to another episode of Giorgio Says the podcast. It's Thursday. We're supposed to get more snow tomorrow, if you can imagine. But listen, it has happened, you guys. We are finally at the point where Crystal has said, screw it. You guys want me to talk? You want me to have an opinion? Well, here I come. All right, so we're obviously here to recap the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills episode, Hard Pill to Swallow. We also have the Homeless, Not Toothless event. I'm going to get into that. But we do have some quick tea because our friend over in Miami, Dr. Nicole Martin, if you remember a little while back, Dr. Nicole Martin and Dr. Tiffany Moon responded to the way Annemarie kind of went about Sutton's esophagus issues, kind of questioning her, mainly because of the way she was doing it. It was very condescending and it was very, it was almost attacking, like almost trying to say that she's lying about something or hiding another issue. Nonetheless, we need to get into some quick tea because Dr. Nicole Martin was on Watch What Happens Live last night, and she had a response to Annemarie saying that Nicole was clout chasing by having the response that she had. So let's get into some quick tea. All right, my friends, let's jump right into this quick tea because it's going to be pretty quick. I feel like Dr. Nicole Martin is, first of all, she's gearing up to be the queen of Miami. She has all the boxes checked. And no, I don't think she responded to that Annemarie situation because she's a clout chaser. But I do want to play you the clip so that you can hear from Dr. Nicole's mouth what her response to Annemarie calling her a clout chaser was. And it was quite funny because I thought the same exact thing when I saw Annemarie on the, I think it was page 6, she was doing an interview. And she started going on and on, just like insinuating, or not insinuating, she came out and said that, you know, Nicole was looking for clout. And I even was like, clout from what? You are like 5 minutes on the scene, girl. Like, what is going on with your 8.5 self? Okay, so let's get into the tea because it was so funny, you guys.
But you know, I think to chase clout implies that you're going after a bigger fish, and Annemarie is in no way a bigger fish, not professionally, not medically, not educationally. So I don't think.
So there you heard it. She's not concerned. She's clearly not looking for clout. I understand that when there's a new housewife, right? They got to come in, they've got to try to make it work. I just don't understand who Annemarie was getting her advice from, Kyle, because it's clear, and I'll get into this in the recap, but it's clear that Annemarie is just going after whatever, and she doesn't realize that people are not vibing with her. And even in interviews outside of the show, because like let's give her some grace. Let's say that they've edited out other things that maybe she is talking about, or maybe there's stuff that we're missing out on. But in these interviews that she does, it's the same person essentially that's on the show. She is being herself. She's just a little delusional, in my opinion. And I do feel that she probably exaggerated certain things about what she does in the medical field to then make herself feel like higher. Or maybe it's that Kyle put her up to this. I'm not sure. I have my own speculations, but I am glad that Dr. Nicole Martin spoke out and spoke up for herself, because I don't think, and judging from what you guys said, you don't think that Dr. Nicole Martin was looking for clout. She doesn't need it. She's already been on the show. She's got money. She's got houses. She's got boats. She has a new beautiful baby on the way. So Annemarie, who? All right. So that was our quick tea. Yes, it was very quick. But we now need to discuss the latest episode of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, guys, because Crystal Kung Meek Goff said no more. I'm not sitting back and being quiet. I'm going to let everyone know here how I really feel, Annemarie. So let's get into the recap right now. Golly Nutrition is an inventive, people-focused nutrition company committed to providing innovative products that make taking your daily supplements simple and delicious. Their products are formulated with quality ingredients you can pronounce and flavors your taste buds will absolutely enjoy. And at the core of it all, they lead with purpose. Golly for Good is an initiative committed to playing a profound role in supporting the health of our planet as well as our local communities. Learn more about their initiatives, such as B Corp certification, Vitamin Angels partnership, and Eden reforestation projects at their Golly for Good page. And if you use my special code, The Giorgio Says, at checkout, you will receive a special discount. Now let's get back into the episode. All right, my friends, we are here to recap Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. The episode was titled Hard Pill to Swallow. Look. I'm so happy that we finally got an episode that was a lot of Crystal, because up until this point, I was really questioning why there was clearly a lot of things that the editors were cutting out in terms of Crystal speaking up. And it's very challenging to watch when you know that there could be other things that come up that maybe Crystal did say. Like there's instances where Crystal did speak up, like when they were in Vegas for Crystal's birthday, and the whole thing between Garcelle and Dorit was going on and on about Dorit basically saying, you need to move on from this situation with your kid last year. Apparently Crystal did speak up in that moment. We just didn't see it. So, you know, if we didn't know that, we would just think that she's just sitting there like quietly, like not ever speaking. But I do think that that's not the case. I do think she does speak up. I now think that possibly, and this is me putting on my editor hat, I almost think that they wanted to kind of create this like image of Crystal not speaking up, following suit with the past 2 seasons where she hasn't really been in anyone's face about anything in terms of confrontation or speaking her mind. Here and there, we got a sprinkle, but overall, we haven't really seen Crystal like go in on anybody, right? This episode, it was clear that they were building this up for Crystal to then go off on Annemarie. And I'm glad that they did that because, you know, first of all, I have my own thoughts on Annemarie, as you probably know at this point. And a lot of you share in the same opinion. So I think we're all on the same page for the most part. However, we start off this episode where Crystal is talking to Garcelle, and she lets Garcelle know that, first of all, it was absolutely ridiculous that Annemarie spent the entire night at Kyle's celebration of life event talking about Sutton's esophagus. Now, if you would have told me before this season aired that this was going to be a storyline, I probably would have been turned off entirely. I mean, I am turned off because I find this to be such a like petty thing that's been dragged out, and I hope it doesn't come up again. Like, I really hope that we're done with this and we can move on so we can see what else Annemarie has to offer, because up until now, I feel like everyone's just wanting her off now. Like they somehow want the editors just magically edit her out of the rest of the season, which is not going to happen, guys. If anything, she'll be a 1-season wonder. But we still have a season to go in terms of like the show still going on. So hopefully we see some other things about Annemarie that might change the tune. I'm going to say right now, I don't think that the tune's going to change on my side about Annemarie, but you never know. But Crystal lets Garcelle know that she had met Annemarie a few months prior at a holiday party in which Annemarie explained to her that she was a doctor. So automatically, obviously, we get introduced to Annemarie. She's not a doctor. And we come to find out she's not even an anesthesiologist, from what we understand. Now, I'm still getting to know what all these different terms mean, but essentially, she kind of exaggerated what her role is in the medical field. And it's when Crystal starts with that it leads to this whole conversation of then Annemarie insinuating that Sutton has an eating disorder, and perhaps that is why she has these esophagus issues. And when Crystal called her out on it in the moment, she said she didn't say that, but then they roll the tapes back and she clearly did say that. So either Annemarie's very forgetful or she's just kind of saying whatever and thinking like she's on this show, so she's just got to start drama or whatever. Or, in my opinion, I think she's been guided by Kyle Richards to come after Sutton. Yes, I do. I do, for a number of reasons. I think Kyle's in a pissy mood, a lot of which I do understand. However, I think the other issue to this is that when Kyle and Kathy were having issues, Sutton and Kathy were still hanging out. And I think that really burned Kyle. So I think this year, bringing Annemarie on, it was the perfect scenario to kind of use Annemarie as a tool to get at Sutton. Now, Sutton's a tough cookie, so I'm not really worried about her defending herself. She does it beautifully. However, sometimes it's nice when other people step up and vocally have your back and speak up about these things. So we go from, the scene with Garcelle and Crystal talking about how Annemarie was just like talking about this esophagus issue way too much, to then we have Crystal meeting up with her brother Jeff, and they're having breakfast and they're catching up. And basically, in a gist, Crystal and her brother Jeff are super duper close. So much so that she says a lot of times people would think they were twins because they did everything together. They always were together. And culturally speaking, this is not abnormal. Like, immigrant families usually want to keep families, siblings all together close at all times. But at some point, Jeff obviously is a grown man. We already understand a little bit about a prior engagement that Jeff had that did not kind of stay the course because perhaps Crystal kind of weighed in a little bit too much or intimidated this girl, and she probably didn't feel like she could stack up against the mom and Crystal. I get it. That's frustrating for someone like Jeff, who's probably trying to just live his life. He's a huge pop star over in China. So like he's, I mean, man, I would love to just sit down and talk to him or just follow him around, because what a life that is, to go to a completely different country and be this huge pop star and then come over here and then have some normalcy. Like, that's got to be so fascinating and so exciting. But nonetheless, they have a great open dialogue around boundaries, and Jeff sets some boundaries with Crystal, and he's honest with her and saying that, look, as much as I love being here with you and the kids, being a Manny, I think it's time for me to break away and create some distance, because ultimately I am an adult. I can make my own decisions. I don't need to constantly have to run everything through an approval process between mom and you, Crystal. Now, you can tell Crystal is not really comfortable with this because I think she's so used to having, an influence in his life. However, I do find that as the conversation went, and I think Jeff handled this beautifully. I even took some pointer notes because I'm not the best at creating boundaries. I'm learning in 2024 that I need to start vocalizing them, but I just have issues with how I go about doing that. And then this scene, I really took some stuff away from Jeff in particular on how to do it in a way that's graceful, that's respectful, that doesn't create any confrontational issues, but still creates a clear boundary, right? So he lets Crystal know, look, I'm going to spend 6 months out of the year in Bangkok. I'm going to do the music thing, the DJ thing, and probably hopefully repair a relationship with someone that he clearly was in love with and was going to marry, or not. Maybe he'll meet someone else. But nonetheless, he's creating that balance and distance for himself because that's what's healthy for him. So I thought that was a really, really important scene. And I'm really glad that we're seeing a little bit more of this dynamic from Crystal's side, because up until now, I feel like they just plop her into these group events and we don't even hear from her until this episode. So from there, we have the Homeless, Not Toothless gala. Yes, Dorit is still working with the Homeless, Not Toothless. And although I'm always down for any organization that's going to help people in need, I'm still a little perplexed at this organization. Well, first, the name. I'm sorry, but can we please change the name? It just sounds like one or the other. You can have teeth and no home, or no home and no teeth. There's no one or the, like, can they have a house instead of some new teeth? Because some people don't really care that much about having good teeth if they don't have a warm bed to sleep in. You know what I'm saying? Nonetheless, so Dorit is getting ready for the Homeless Not Toothless gala. And, she's really driving this PTSD thing, even if it's subtly, because at one point she's talking to the event planners and she's like, I just want to make sure that there's, that these doors are going to be secure. And they're like, yes, don't you worry. There will not be any stragglers slipping through these doors once the event starts. So you have nothing to worry about. And this signals to me that one of two things. Dorit is either stretching this out and trying to keep this narrative going that she's dealing with the PTSD, because let's be honest, there's nothing really else going on with her. But it's really interesting because then we get to the scene where they're all heading and getting ready for this gala. And we have Kyle and Mo dressed up, ready to go. And I had to pause for a second because here's where I'm at with this. And I'm totally with Sutton when she was hanging out with Kyle and when she's questioning, like, why would you not show up to your wife's best friend of eons celebration of life party? Like, I get people have jobs. I get that he probably had business in, Mexico City and wherever else he was. But aren't you the owner of the agency? Wouldn't you be able to change something around, maybe fly out the next day? There's so many different ways to go about this. And I felt like it was just really distasteful of him not to show up to something so important, but then make sure he shows up for this Homeless Not Toothless gala. Like, well, I would have rather you not come to that. Or you could come to both, but nonetheless, the more important event you should have been at was the celebration of life event, because this is something that has come out that you clearly weren't as supportive of Kyle and her emotion, what she was dealing with in terms of the loss. And that's a pretty heavy loss. I mean, I said last week, I was really emotional during that because that's just such a tough thing. And I can't even imagine. I mean, I've lost my dad, but not through suicide. So even hearing Sutton talk about that, it really made me emotional because it's like, it just, I don't know. It was triggering for me in some ways because it's so sad, but then also you kind of get pissy because you're like, what? Yeah, why wasn't Mo there? So nonetheless, they get into this SUV, they're heading to the event, and it's clearly this very, like, to me, it was coming off like they are strangers in the night passing by, and they are just trying to keep up a front publicly because Kyle references that when they get to the event. But in this car ride, they catch up and Kyle kind of gives Mo a taste of his own medicine. She goes, well, I'm going to be traveling now for the next few weeks. And it's like as if she's purposefully dropping this on him at the last minute, because in her interview, she says Mo does this to her all the time. He has no consideration for giving her a heads up. So she's not going to give him a heads up. Tough shit. Look, I know a lot of us have speculated whether or not this is just for a storyline. At this point, I don't think this is a storyline. Maybe the Morgan stuff is being played up for a storyline more so than the issues between her and Mo, but it is clear to me that there is nothing there for her. She is so resentful of him that she's just biding her time and trying to figure out what she wants next. So that was very interesting because it doesn't seem that Mo is used to this side of Kyle. I think he's used to her being the uber supportive, understanding mom, wife, like sidekick. But I think things in her life have changed and she's got her goggles off and she's looking around and she's looking at things crystal clear and she's putting her foot down. And I am always down for that. I think anybody that's in a situation, something rocks you like that, it's going to shift your viewpoint on how you look at the people around you and who shows up and who doesn't. And it's clear based on what Kyle has said up until this point that he did not show up for her when she needed him. So that's got to be devastating, specifically when you've been in a marriage that long and you have this big family and you've built all the things that they've built. So they get to the event and all the ladies start showing up, and we get to the point where Sutton's ready to confront Annemarie. She's had enough. She is so tired of this esophagus talk. She's so tired of Annemarie only being around her a few times and having all these opinions, going around to all the women, talking about it. So much so that the show, the editors, shout out to the editors, showed us the receipts of how many different times throughout the Celebration of Life event, Annemarie was talking about Sutton's esophagus to everyone, even Teddy. She was even talking to Teddy. Even Teddy was, I'm sure Teddy was eating it up a little bit because she doesn't really care for Sutton. But nonetheless, the woman was really making it a point to discuss Sutton's esophagus like it was her problem. And it was very, very strange. Also, earlier in the episode, Crystal points out that a quick Google search would show that whatever it is that Sutton described was wrong with her esophagus or whatever issue she had, it was proven that it's a real thing. And she said when she typed in the word esophagus, genetic was the natural word that would come up next. So meaning when Sutton says that this is a genetic thing that it runs in her family, that's all Crystal needed to see to validate that Sutton was telling the truth. Not that she didn't believe her. I think she used that as more ammunition to prove Annemarie was just being bitchy about this whole thing. But I will say, there was a moment that I laughed out loud when Erika arrives to this gala, and she's just kind of like, she's gone into the ballroom. It hasn't started yet. And this gentleman walks up to her and he introduces himself. And she's, at first I was like, is this supposed to be like someone's hitting on her? But then she goes, wait, what's your name? And so he says his name again, and he adds doctor, and I think his name was Dr. Justin something or another. And she goes, oh my God, wait, you're my dentist. I just lost my bleach trays. And it was, I don't know why that was so funny to me, because it was just like, we're seeing such a new side of Erika. And listen, I don't know if I've said it on a podcast or a TikTok, but when I was at BravoCon, and you guys who've been following me since the beginning know that I was very hard on Erika, very hard. Like some days I didn't even let her have air. When I got to BravoCon, and after the interview she did with Zach Peter, I had a change of heart. I saw her differently. I started to give more grace. I started to be a little bit more empathetic. And I think a lot of the noise had died down and things were kind of turning in her favor. And I will always admit when I'm wrong. So when I was at BravoCon and I went up to say hello to Erika, I didn't want to take a picture with her unless I apologized, because to me, that's the only right thing to do, is take ownership and explain, or not explain. I didn't explain. I almost just was more about being accountable. She is a human being, and I don't know what it was like for her. I'm sure it was very difficult. I also wasn't married to this man, so I can't speak for her in that way. However, I did own up to it, and she was so gracious. From that moment on, my lens for her has shifted. And honestly, she seems like a breath of fresh air. She seems like she can relax, she can be herself, and she's rediscovering who this Erika is, and I'm here for it. So that moment was really funny to me, because it was just like a quirky little funny moment that they probably normally would have edited out, but for some reason it was important for them to keep it in. I'm glad they did, because it was hilarious. Now, there's another special gem that was featured on this episode. No, not Taylor Dayne, because that is an icon with an iconic song. I'm talking about the older woman that was there in all pink, like Erika, but her hair was also pink. I mean, she was a cutie patootie. I probably would have begged to sit at her table and hang out with her the entire night. And I'm sure Erika would have as well if she wasn't filming for Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. But I loved that woman. So if anyone out there knows who that woman is or knows her Instagram, I want to follow her. She seems like a chic, fabulous, vibing. She gets it. I love it. I love love people like that. They embrace things that they love at whatever age. There's no rules. And she is the epitome of that. So shout out to that woman. She was so funny, so cute. Nonetheless, we're not done yet because we have Sutton there who's ready to come after Annemarie for everything that she's been saying about her esophagus. And we have this scene where we have Erika, Crystal, Garcelle, and Sutton all standing at one of those high top tables. And they're all there and they see Annemarie coming. And Sutton is like, yep, hi, get over here now. And first of all, if this is a new alliance that's building, I'm here for it. I am so here for it. Erika, Crystal, Garcelle, Sutton alliance. Hello. That would be fun. That would be fun, my friends. But Annemarie walks over with her husband, which, by the way, I find it really odd when people like don't assume everyone wants to be hugged the first time that they meet you, because I believe that Sutton has not met Annemarie's husband up until this point. But he leans in and he's like, I'm a hugger. And clearly Sutton's uncomfortable because she's like, oh, okay, your wife's been talking smack about my esophagus. I don't even know if I want to hug you, but nice to meet you. Anyways, Annemarie shuffles him off to go have a drink, and Sutton tells Annemarie, we need to have a conversation. And Annemarie agrees, but then Sutton's like, no, right now. Like, we're going to have this out here at the Homeless Not Toothless Gala. Yes. So she starts going in on her, and she ma'amed her down. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. When that starts coming out of a Southern woman's mouth, you better run. You better run, my friends. Because that means she's had it. And you don't know what's going to come out of her mouth next or what she's going to do. So as they're going back and forth, you know, Kyle makes her way over. Like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, please, you set this up, ma'am. Don't be shocked. But as her, you know, Annemarie and Sutton are going back and forth, it comes out that, you know, now she's being called out for calling Sutton a liar, that Sutton's lying about things, not once, not twice, but now 3 times. So they're trying to figure out, well, what were the lies that Sutton told? So Crystal jumps in because, rightfully so, she's kind of like backtracking a little bit. So Crystal's like, no, you actually did say that. And you said that she lied about this. You said she lied about that. So just own it. Just own that you said that she lied. Well, Annemarie doesn't like this, so she comes after Crystal and then says that Crystal's the one that insinuated Sutton had an eating disorder. Hello, did we roll the tapes back? When did she ever say that? If anything, she was offended that you even brought up the word eating disorder with Sutton in the same sentence, because she's obviously battled with something like that. Again, I find these to be little sprinkles that Kyle has given Annemarie because she knew that that would ultimately trigger Crystal. Well, it did. It sure did. And for everyone out there that's waiting for Crystal to buck up and speak up, she's like, okay, well, I'm going to speak up now. You're a bitch. You lied about being a doctor, Annemarie. So cut the shit. Good for Crystal. I'm here for this, Crystal. And look, Aquarius season's coming up, starting Saturday. So us Aquarius folks, we're in the age of Aquarius. We're not gonna sit down and take the crap anymore. So I'm here for this. I'm here for this, Crystal. And was it the nicest thing to call Annemarie a bitch? No. But was Annemarie acting like a bitch? Yes. So, you know, take that for what it is. All I know is I want this esophagus talk to stop. If this is all Annemarie's giving us this season, is being Kyle's pet, going after Sutton over her esophagus issues, questioning someone's medical issues. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable. I'm sorry. I wouldn't feel comfortable working with anyone in the medical field who acted like that. I'm here because I need empathy, grace, and to be educated on what's going on and guidance, not judgment, not for you to question what my issue is when I'm telling you what my issue is. It should have just been left at that. She's not Sutton's doctor. And as Crystal mentioned, she's not a doctor at all. So, of course, after Crystal pops off, there's all these gawks from all the other ladies, rightfully so, because I think a lot of them weren't used to Crystal popping off that way. And she really hasn't, but she did now. But then to turn it around, act like you're shocked that she did this at this event. Excuse me, ma'am, what do you think we're doing here exactly? We're filming a show. And since when did you guys care about what type of event you were at on how you acted? Because let's roll the tape back on previous seasons when other women have done that. So this is where I get like pissy with them, because it's like you guys want her to speak up, then she does, and then you guys throw more garbage at her and then try to twist it around like she's in the wrong. Absolutely not. So Team Crystal here, Team Aqua. Gotta stick together, Aqua fam. But you know, it was shocking, I'm sure. So to be fair, it's like, you know, my jaw dropped, even though I knew it was coming. I was like, yes, but I was like, ultimately, like, good for you. Like, you got to stand up for yourself. And on these shows, it's very important that you vocalize everything, you know? And so hopefully we get this new, fresh, speaking up side of Crystal for the remainder of this season and through the reunion, because I think she's always had the potential to be a really good housewife. I know a lot of you guys find her to be boring, but I don't think she's boring at all, because when we get the scenes of her actually engaging, she's not boring, not one bit. But I do think that the editors maybe softened her up until now to make this be that much more of a splash, if that makes sense. Like from the editor's point of view, they're like, oh, how about if we just cut her back a lot and then just throw her right in there and make her go off? Because honestly, like, she did speak up before. They just cut it out. And I've said this before. So we get to the time where the event starts, and Dorit is called up to the podium to speak and introduce Paula Abdul, who then introduces Taylor Dayne. But it's the title that they introduced Dorit with that had me a little perplexed. They said fashion designer Dorit Kemsley. What in the Beverly Beach? When did she become a fashion designer? Also, is Beverly Beach still a thing? Are we still running that company, or was that just another shell company that we did as a drop ship for like 6 months, allegedly? I don't know. But when Taylor Dayne takes the stage, tell it to my heart. First of all, if you have no idea, that song will get anybody up dancing. That voice is so iconic. I'm actually stunned that she doesn't have a comeback at this point. Like, why isn't she back in the studio? I would love to hear what she would come out with now. That voice is so iconic to me. I love that song so much. So you see all the ladies dancing. Erika's having another moment where she's singing along. Remember when she was at, what's her name? She was a one-season wonder. Diana. She was at her Christmas party, except she was lit, but she was singing along. This was like the new and improved version of Erika singing along, you know? So it was really fun, great. But I do have some questions for the people over at the Homeless Not Toothless organization. I always appreciate anybody or any organization rather that's there to help people in need. But I'm confused because it seems like the homeless people only have one option here, and it's to get a new set of veneers, and then you send them back out onto the street to sleep on the sidewalks or behind a dumpster. Why can't we give them both? Like, why can't we? Well, how about we let them pick? Hey, do you want a new set of teeth, buddy? Or do you want like housing? I would think that the homeless people would jump at housing first, because yeah, your teeth look great, but you're shivering cold. You have no warm bed to sleep in and no roof over your head. So I'm still confused. Also, why weren't there any homeless people with new teeth at this gala? Not one? You couldn't find one to bring to the gala to speak on their experience working with this organization? That's a little weird to me. But anyways, we then get to the end of the episode where the ladies now have to start packing because they're all heading to Spain. And the issue now is that obviously Crystal and Annemarie are not on the best of terms. So we have Erika playing mediator. Shocking. Because usually people are the ones trying to mediate between Erika and someone else. It's now funny that this time Erika is now mediating between Crystal and what her reaction was, which, look, Erika's just happy to not be in the mess. And I don't blame her. She is so relaxed. She's like, it's not about me this time. It's been about me for so long. I'm so happy. It's not about me for once. So I will do whatever you guys want me to do, producers. So anyways, she calls Crystal, and Crystal does admit wasn't the best word to use, calling her a bitch, but you know, she's being a bitch. And if Annemarie doesn't want to talk to her, it's probably for the best. Like, yeah, I don't really care if she talks to me. It'd probably be better if she doesn't. Now, Kyle then has a conversation with Annemarie because obviously Kyle knows we can't have multiple people not speaking if we're going to go on this girls' trip. So she puts on her producer hat and she calls Annemarie and she's like, look, if you're not going to be speaking to Crystal during this whole time, you're definitely going to have to make things right with Sutton because she's actually the one that invited you on this trip and it's her trip. So, you know, that would be the best thing to do. So Annemarie obviously takes the advice from Kyle. Now, I was on the fence on how authentic this apology was, but it was definitely more authentic than the fake apology she gave her at the gala. And it seemed like it was coming from a more place of grace. Like she was really extending an olive branch. She was really trying. And it seemed that Sutton accepted it and is willing to kind of take the steps forward. And maybe this trip will allow for Annemarie and Sutton to get to know each other better. And maybe we won't have these issues pop up again. But then they give us some clips. It looked like a preview from next week because it kind of happened all fast. But the ladies get to Spain and we see there is a dinner where Annemarie is calling Crystal out and saying that before Annemarie joined the group, Crystal had said some things about the ladies that weren't very nice. And so when they question Crystal, Crystal seems to be put up against the wall. Again, here we go with this soundbite. Annemarie is like, Crystal, you should thank me. And Crystal's like, for what? And she's like, for making you relevant. And it's like, oh my God, are you joking? Who does Annemarie really think she is? Clout chasing. Now you're making people relevant. I didn't know who you were before you came on the show. I still don't know who you are. I know about your husband allegedly doing some shady things and some horrific things, though, that no one really wants to get into. We know about him. We know about his opinions. What I also think is interesting is reports were saying that, and maybe it's coming up in Spain, but there was allegedly some conversation around Annemarie and Marcus's viewpoints on trans kids in sports that apparently also came up. And I wasn't certain if this happened around the same time as the gala because there was a clip of that scene being filmed, but there was just Erika and Annemarie talking at that high top table. And it sounded like they were talking about maybe something that Annemarie said, but I don't know. So we'll have to keep watching there to see what happens. I'm excited for the remainder of the season. I think now they have completely solidified themselves. They're all clearly comfortable to get into the mess. And Spain looks like it's going to be fun. And it seems like there's some drama that unfolds, obviously, with Crystal and Annemarie. So we will continue to watch and recap it for you guys. But that was pretty much the episode. Again, I'm very happy that they've shown us more of Crystal this episode, and I hope we get to see more of her in a balanced setting going forward. But yeah, Team Crystal, baby. All right, you guys. That was my recap for Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I am going to be recapping Real Housewives of Miami with Caitlin Marshall, Besties by Bravo, for Friday's episode. And I will be recapping Salt Lake City's reunion part 2 with Caitlin on today's episode on her podcast, Besties by Bravo. So you can catch us there at 3:30 Eastern time today. What else? Well, if it's going to be snowing where you are, you're in a blizzard as well, and you're freezing or below freezing temperatures, stay warm. I hope you guys have your food and your snacks and your milk and your bread and all the essentials you would need when it's snowing outside. And please stay safe. And until the next episode, guys, I love you. You know I do. I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye.